soon as I saw him playing on the ATP Tour, I thought he's going to be a great player. There's no question about that. He played tennis too well not to become a great player. The only thing that could have stopped him getting to the top was this.
My old rival, Peter Lundgren, told me, listen, I've got this young Swiss guy. He's a little crazy in the head, but he's really talented. Why don't you have a look at him? And I went to the practice court and I saw him throwing the rackets around the court and going crazy. So I told Peter, listen, if the guy's ever going to get a sane mind, he's eventually going to win a tennis match.
You know, what they say is true. You know, I wasn't mentally strong at the time, and I was struggling to get my act together, you know, and be able to play an entire tournament well. On a day, you know, I could create a big surprise, but, you know, then losing the next round is not going to make you feel great either, you know, because you want to take that big victory you did and take it along for the entire tournament, and that's what I couldn't do.
So much talent, so little focus. Could that be possible?
I'm the wrong guy to ask, you know, to keep your control. You know, that's not something that's in my vocabulary.
In Roger's game, self-control has become the key. Sometimes it's better to save energy and keep your focus. In early 2001, Roger had been a tennis professional for almost 3 years and had not won a single tournament. But Roger had learned a lot of lessons and wins his first ATP tournament in Milan. A few days later, he demonstrated not just control over himself, but also over his opponents.
The first time I really saw him live and in person was when we played them in the Davis Cup in 2001, and I was my first time as a captain. And he pretty much dominated the entire tie because it seemed like every time he got his racket on the ball, the point was over. And I never forget trying to tell my guys who were playing the doubles, you know, whatever you do, just try to keep the ball away from this guy.
So you watch this and, you know, I wish I could play like that well. You know, I'd like to think I could play pretty well, but when I see him, I'm like, wait a second.
Roger's success also influences the Swiss team. And he goes a step further. Thanks to him, the Davis Cup team has a new captain, Roger's former mentor, Peter Carter. Once everything falls into place, it continues like that. In 2001, Roger finally enters the annals of tennis history, and it happens at Wimbledon.
I remember the match point when I played Sampras. I think it was up 15-40 at 6-5 in the fifth for me, and had 2 match points, and I really believed he will serve my forehand. It's going to be for sure. So I picked the side. He served to my forehand. I hit the return, and as the moment I hit the ball, I knew it's going to be a winner. I fell to my knees, and it was just an unbelievable emotion and unbelievable experience for me to play against him. It was my first time I played on center court, and in a 5-set match thriller, you know, it was just too much to take for me at the time. I cried like crazy, and I was so happy. So I have lots of memories from the match still.
When he beat Sampras, then it was, okay, you know, he's going to win this thing. Then he didn't win it. He lost to Henman in the next match. And the next year, I picked him to win the tournament. I felt like he was going to win the tournament. He lost first round.
Probably some people were expecting too much of him. He needed a little while just to grow into himself, grow into his game.
Most players would say, well, I just want to win. And there's no question that he wants to win, but he's also interested in finding out whether he's capable of handling that moment.
Though he was not overstrained in the match against Sampras, the sudden victory was too much. Federer was not yet ready for total victory. Now the whole world expects him to win. His private dream has become public property, and that changes everything. The pressure on Roger is enormous. All he can think about is winning. But how can you win if you think about winning all the time? In the middle of this crisis, something unexpected happens. Federer's friend and former coach, Peter Carter, dies in a car crash in South Africa.
You know, when you lose such a close friend, everything else seems not so important, you know, and suddenly tennis, you know, my whole life seems not so important anymore.
For him, this was a very, very great shock because Peter was a very important person in his life. I think for him this was his first death case that he had to deal with. The shock was very, very deep, and but I think it also strengthened him in a way. Yeah. I mean, what we always admired with Peter was the responsibility he took over Roger as a child. He always, whenever he was on tour, he kept close contact with us. He kept us informed on everything. Should Roger have an injury, or should Roger, you know, not feel well in any way, feel sick or anything. Peter was always we had a very, very close relationship with Peter, and we always cherished these moments.
Coping with Carter's death is harder than anything Roger has faced before. He goes back on tour, but can't stop thinking about his friend. Federer works his sorrow out of his system. Being confronted with such a loss, losing on court, no longer troubles him.
I started to win, you know, Marseille, Dubai, Munich, and I came into Wimbledon at the right time, because then I was ready, and before that I wouldn't have been ready for it.
Set a match, Federer. 3 sets to love, 7-6.
On Sunday, July the 6th, 2003, Roger wins the tournament of all tournaments, the first Swiss player to do so.
Roger Federer, Wimbledon champion. You better get used to that.
Thank you. No, it's an absolute dream for me coming true, and I was always joking around when I was a boy. I'm gonna win this, and now I have it.
And you've had so much support from back home and from everyone here. What's your message to them?
It's so nice, you know, to share this moment, and thanks to everybody. Oh, it's great.
Congratulations, Roger Federer.
It definitely changed my life in a way, you know, because I became like a tennis star, a sports star. Just by being in the history books of Wimbledon makes me so proud, and being a member at the club, you know, it's for me also something very special.
It was a dream, even for me, you know, to see a guy that you spent so much time with to win it, even though I didn't win it, but I felt like I wanted to. It's great.
Roger Federer returns home as Wimbledon champion. Thousands of fans greet the new superstar. As the world number 2, Federer goes to Houston for the first time. In the final, he beats Andre Agassi and ends the season as world champion.
Man, you're an inspiration to watch you move and play, and you're going to make me better next year, so thanks for that.
Winning the Masters proves that Roger has matured. He's no longer a young up-and-coming talent. It's time for some tough decisions. Roger and his coach, Peter Lundgren, part company.